when the whole block came outside. Summer block. Party memories. Black kids will never forget. There was a day every summer when the street itself became a living room. The city would come and drop off barricades at each end of the block, and suddenly the asphalt that usually belonged to cars belonged to the people. Folding tables appeared on sidewalks. Grills were wheeled out from backyards and basements. Extension cords snaked from windows to power speakers that would soon fill the air with music. Children who had been trapped indoors by cautious parents were suddenly free to run the entire length of the street without looking both ways. This was the block party, and if you grew up black in America during the 1960s and 1970s, this was the highlight of your summer. Before we dive into these memories, if you're new here, take a moment to subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell so you never miss another trip down memory lane. And as you watch, drop a comment below sharing your own block party memories. We love hearing your stories, and they make this community so special. The block party was more than a gathering. It was a declaration. It said that this street, this block, this community mattered. It said that the people who lived here deserved to celebrate, to come together, to claim public space for their own joy. In neighborhoods that were often overlooked by the city, underserved by municipal resources, and dismissed by the wider world, the block party was proof that community existed and that it was beautiful. This is the story of the summer block party in black neighborhoods. The story of the planning, the cooking, the music, and the memories that shaped generations. The block party did not happen by accident. It required planning, organizing, and cooperation among neighbors who might not always see eye to eye on other matters. Someone had to take the lead, often a community-minded woman who knew everyone on the block and could coordinate the many moving parts. She would start weeks in advance, going door to door, making sure everyone knew the date, collecting small contributions to cover shared costs, assigning responsibilities. The permit had to be obtained from the city, a bureaucratic process that could be frustrating but was necessary to get those barricades that would close the street to traffic. Someone had to fill out forms, pay fees, and deal with city officials who might not understand why a neighborhood would want to shut down a street for a party. The permit was a small victory, official recognition that the community had the right to celebrate. Once the date was set and the permit secured, the planning intensified. Who would bring the grills? How many tables were needed? Who had a sound system powerful enough to be heard the length of the block? Who would organize games for the children? Each household was expected to contribute something: food, equipment, time, or money. The block party was a collective effort, and participation was both expected and essential. The preparation on the day of the block party began early before the summer sun had reached its full intensity. The barricades were positioned at each end of the street, transforming the roadway from a thoroughfare into a venue. Tables were carried out and set up along the sidewalks, covered with tablecloths that would soon be laden with food. The grills were positioned strategically, not too close to any particular house, not too far from where the food would be served. The men who manned the grills took their positions with the seriousness of professionals. Grilling was a competitive art in black neighborhoods, and the block party was where reputations were made or broken. Each grill master had his own techniques, his own secret seasonings, his own opinions about charcoal versus gas, about when to flip and when to let it ride. The smell of lighter fluid and charcoal smoke announced that the party was beginning, even before the first guests arrived. The women orchestrated the food tables, arranging dishes in an order that made sense, keeping hot things hot and cold things cold, shooing away children who tried to sneak early samples. The food was the heart of the block party, and every household contributed according to their specialty and their means. The variety was staggering, a potluck of the highest order, representing the culinary traditions of everyone on the block. The food at a block party was a tour of black American cuisine at its finest. The grills produced ribs glistening with barbecue sauce, chicken quarters with crispy charred skin, hot dogs and hamburgers for the children, and sometimes more ambitious items: whole fish, smoked sausages, even the occasional pig if someone had the equipment and the skill. The smell of grilling meat drew people out of their houses like a magnet, impossible to resist. The side dishes covered every table. Potato salad was essential. Every family had their own recipe, some with mustard, some with mayo, some with both, some with pickles, and some without, and everyone believed their version was the best. Coleslaw, baked beans, macaroni and cheese, collard greens, candied yams. The staples of soul food appeared in abundance. Each dish came in quantities meant to feed dozens, because at a block party, you fed not just your family, but everyone who walked by. The desserts were equally impressive. Pound cakes, sweet potato pies, peach cobblers, banana puddings. Each baker brought their specialty, their reputation riding on every bite. The children hovered around the dessert table like bees around flowers, calculating when they could claim a slice of cake or a bowl of pudding without being scolded for spoiling their dinner. Drinks filled coolers and tubs of ice, sodas for the children, Coca-Cola, orange Fanta, grape Knee-High, beer for the adults, kept cold and distributed with knowing nods. Kool-Aid in industrial quantities, mixed stronger and sweeter than you would make at home. Because block party Kool-Aid was supposed to be an event in itself, someone always brought a special punch. Fruit juices mixed with ginger ale and whatever else they deemed appropriate. The music was the soul of the block party, the element that transformed a neighborhood gathering into an event. The sound system was crucial. Speakers powerful enough to fill the street with sound, positioned to project music the length of the block. Someone in every neighborhood had the equipment, either a serious home stereo that could be moved outside or a more portable system designed for exactly these occasions. The DJ, whether an official position or just whoever controlled the records, had enormous responsibility. The music had to keep the energy right throughout the day and into the evening. It had to satisfy multiple generations: the elders who wanted to hear the classics, the young adults who wanted the current hits, the children who just wanted something they could dance to. A good block party DJ read the crowd and adjusted, knowing when to drop a slow jam and when to bring the energy back up. The music of the 1970s block party was a survey of black musical excellence. Funk from Parliament Funkadelic Ohio players and Earth, Wind and Fire got people moving with bass lines that you felt in your chest. Soul from Marvin Gaye, Stevie Wonder, and Al Green provided the emotional foundation. The Isley Brothers, Curtis Mayfield, and James Brown were guaranteed crowd pleasers. Disco was emerging by mid-decade, adding Donna Summer and the Bee Gees to the mix. The music never stopped. It was the continuous thread that held the block party together from afternoon until night. When the music played, people danced. The street became a dance floor, the asphalt surprisingly forgiving under feet that had been dancing on it since childhood. Couples paired off for slow songs, holding each other close while neighbors watched and children giggled. When the up-tempo songs came on, circles formed, with dancers taking turns in the center, showing off their best moves. The dancing at block parties was multi-generational in a way that few other events could match. Grandparents showed the steps they had learned decades ago: the Lindy Hop, the Jitterbug, moves that had been refined in dance halls during their youth. Parents danced the current styles, the hustle as disco took hold, the bump that had everyone hip-checking each other. Children watched and imitated, learning the traditions of movement that were as much a part of black culture as the music itself. The older folks had their own section, usually around the tables with the best food, where they could eat and talk and watch the younger generations without having to raise their voices over the music. They remembered block parties from their own youth, compared notes on how things had changed, and took satisfaction in seeing the tradition continue. For them, the block party was evidence that community still existed, that the neighborhood had not been completely destroyed by the changes that were reshaping urban America. For children, the block party was paradise. The entire street was their playground, and for once, no one was telling them to be careful of cars or to stay close to home. They ran in packs, children from every house on the block mixing together, age and usual social distinctions temporarily suspended. The freedom was intoxicating. The whole block belonged to them, and they intended to use every inch of it. Games were organized, both by adults who set up activities and by the children themselves. Double Dutch ropes appeared, and the girls showed off their skills to audiences larger than usual. Foot races were run, the finish line some landmark down the block that everyone could see. Relay races pitted one end of the block against the other. Water balloon fights erupted when the afternoon heat became too much to bear, children shrieking and laughing as they soaked each other, and occasionally an unsuspecting adult. The fire hydrant, if someone had a wrench to open it, became the neighborhood pool. Water arced into the air and cascaded down on children who danced in the spray, cooling off and creating chaos in equal measure. Adults tolerated this, remembering their own childhoods when the hydrant had served the same purpose. The water flooded down the street, creating rivers that children dammed and sailed boats in, turning the block party into a water park. The block party was also where romances began, and sometimes ended. Young people used the occasion to see and be seen, to position themselves near someone they had been admiring, to maybe work up the courage to ask for a dance. The teenage corner of the block party was full of flirtation and drama, whispered conversations and meaningful glances. The social negotiations of adolescence played out against the backdrop of music and celebration. For young adults, the block party was an opportunity to demonstrate their status. Young men showed off their cars, parked strategically at the edges of the blocked-off area where they could be admired. Young women wore their best summer outfits, knowing that the block party was a fashion show as much as a social event. The competition was real but mostly friendly, everyone understanding that looking good was part of the celebration. The adults watched these dynamics with knowing smiles, remembering when they had been the ones strutting and preening. Some matches made at block parties had turned into marriages, into families, into the households that now lined the block. The block party was not just celebrating the community as it existed, but also creating the conditions for its continuation. The elders at the block party served as living memory, connecting the present celebration to the history of the neighborhood. They remembered when certain houses had been built, when certain families had arrived, when the neighborhood had changed in ways both good and bad. Their presence gave the block party weight and meaning beyond the immediate celebration. These elders were honored with the first plates of food, the most comfortable chairs, the respect that their age and experience commanded. They sat together, usually in the shade, watching the younger generations with a mixture of pride and concern. They saw things that others missed: the children who were heading for trouble, the couples whose relationships were strained, the changes in the neighborhood that signaled larger transformations to come. The conversations among the elders were history lessons disguised as gossip. They remembered the block party of 1965 when such and such happened. They recalled when certain families had moved away during white flight or when certain families had arrived during the Great Migration. They knew the stories behind the houses and the people who lived in them. For children who happened to wander into earshot, these conversations were education about their own community. The block party also served practical purposes beyond celebration. It was where neighbors who might not interact regularly had the opportunity to catch up, to resolve minor disputes, to coordinate on issues affecting the block. The informal governance of the neighborhood happened at events like this. Consensus built over plates of barbecue and cups of Kool-Aid. Problems could be addressed at the block party without the formality of meetings or committees. If someone's yard was becoming an eyesore, a gentle word at the block party might solve it. If there were concerns about strangers hanging around, the block party was where people compared notes and made plans. If a family was struggling, the block party was where discreet assistance could be offered without embarrassment. The block party strengthened the informal networks of mutual aid that sustained urban black communities. Everyone knew who could be relied upon in an emergency, who had skills that might be needed, who might need help, and how they might receive it without sacrificing their dignity. These networks were built and maintained through regular social interaction, and the block party was one of the most important opportunities for that interaction. As evening fell, the block party transformed. The harsh summer sun softened into golden light and then into the blue of dusk. The music shifted too, becoming slower, more romantic. The children, exhausted from hours of running and playing, began to fade, some falling asleep in parents' arms or on blankets spread on the grass. The adult party was beginning, and it had its own character. The conversations grew more serious as darkness fell. Men stood in clusters, discussing work and politics, sports and strategies for getting ahead. Women gathered in their own groups, sharing news and advice, supporting each other through the challenges of raising families and managing households. The alcohol that had been consumed moderately during the day flowed more freely, loosening tongues and lowering inhibitions. The dancing in the evening was different from the afternoon. Couples held each other closer. The music was moodier, more sensual. The block party had become a nightclub, an outdoor venue where adults could enjoy themselves while still being close to home. Children who had been put to bed sometimes crept to windows to watch, seeing their parents and neighbors in a new light, dancing and laughing in ways they did not usually witness. The block party was also a showcase for talent that might otherwise go unrecognized. Someone would inevitably grab the microphone if there was one, or just start singing along with the music in a way that drew attention. These impromptu performances revealed hidden gifts: the quiet neighbor who could actually sing, the teenager who could rap, the old man who still had moves from his performing days decades ago. For aspiring musicians and performers, the block party was a first stage. The audience was supportive but honest. They would cheer for genuine talent and politely ignore mediocrity. A young person who impressed the block party crowd gained confidence that could lead to bigger stages. Many professional performers trace their earliest experiences to neighborhood events like block parties, where they first learned they could hold an audience's attention. The sound system sometimes became a battleground, different factions lobbying for their preferred music. The teenagers wanted the new songs they heard on the radio. The adults wanted the classics that held memories for them. The DJ had to navigate these competing demands, usually by mixing old and new, satisfying everyone partially if not completely. The generational tension over music was itself a tradition, played out at every block party since block parties began. The block party's significance extended beyond the single day of celebration. It was something to look forward to during the long months of winter and spring, a landmark on the calendar that gave shape to the year. Children counted down the days until the next block party, remembering the previous year's event and imagining how the next one would be even better. The preparation for the block party, the event itself, and the memories created became part of the neighborhood's shared story. Remember the block party when the fire department came because the hydrant wouldn't close? Remember when Mrs. Johnson's potato salad ran out and there was almost a riot? These stories were retold year after year, becoming the mythology of the block. The block party also created obligations and expectations. If you ate at your neighbor's table, you were expected to contribute when it was your turn. If you enjoyed the music from someone's sound system, you were expected to help carry it back inside when the party ended. The block party reinforced the reciprocity that held the community together, the understanding that everyone gave and everyone received. By the late 1970s and into the 1980s, the traditional block party began to face challenges. Rising crime in some neighborhoods made outdoor gatherings feel less safe. The crack epidemic devastated communities that had once been stable enough to organize such events. White flight and urban decay reduced the tax base, making city services less responsive to permit requests. The conditions that had made block parties possible were being eroded. The people who had organized block parties, the community-minded women and men who did the hard work of bringing neighbors together, were aging or moving away. Younger generations, facing different challenges and living differently from their parents, did not always have the time, inclination, or skills to continue the tradition. Some blocks went years without parties. The tradition fading from memory, but the block party never completely disappeared. In many neighborhoods, the tradition continued, adapted to new circumstances. In others, efforts were made to revive what had been lost, younger residents learning from elders how to organize and execute a proper block party. The fundamental appeal of closing down the street and celebrating together remained, even as the specific forms evolved. For those who experienced the block parties of the 1960s and 1970s, the memories remain vivid and precious. The sound of the music echoing off the brick buildings, the smell of barbecue smoke mixing with summer air, the taste of food prepared by neighbors who put their reputations into every dish, the feeling of community, of belonging, of being surrounded by people who knew you and cared about you. These memories connect us to a time when neighborhoods were tight-knit, when people knew their neighbors by name, when community was built through regular interaction and shared celebration. The block party was both a product of that community and a builder of it, reinforcing the bonds that held people together. The block party also represents something larger about Black urban life in the 20th century. In cities that often treated Black neighborhoods as problems to be managed rather than communities to be served, the block party was an assertion of humanity and dignity. It said that these streets, these people, this community deserved to celebrate. It transformed neglected blocks into festive spaces, proving that joy could flourish anywhere. The tradition of the block party drew on deeper cultural roots, the African traditions of community gathering, the Southern customs that migrants brought with them to northern cities, the human need to mark time with celebration. The block party was distinctly urban and distinctly American, but it carried echoes of village festivals and family reunions, of harvest celebrations and holy days. What do you remember about block parties in your neighborhood? Who organized them? And what foods were always on the tables? What music played from the speakers? What games did the children play? Share your memories in the comments below. Let us celebrate together the tradition that brought neighborhoods together and created memories that last a lifetime. And if you have not already, subscribe to this channel and ring that bell so you never miss another journey into the beautiful past that made us who we are. This is our story. This is our block. This is our party, remembered with love and gratitude for the communities that raised us.